Good evening and welcome to the show, and if anyone's watching this programme having recorded it on Video Plus, you should be joining us about now. In the news this week, the Samaritans admit their decision to share offices with the Canine Defence League has been a disaster. After complaints of sewage pollution in the sea between Dover and Calais, new facilities are provided for cross-channel swimmers. And in his latest publicity stunt to promote Virgin Airways, Richard Branson sets off on the first leg of his transatlantic flight. On Ian Hislop's team is a comedian who in his younger days worked in a tuning fork factory and was the first person to be arrested for trying to sell E to rock musicians, Mark Hurst. And with Paul Merton tonight is a radical journalist who in the 60s joined the controversial Oz magazine, but he got fed up with working for an anti-establishment rag that was always in court, so he now works for Private Eye, Francis Wheen. Before the final scores, a short quiz, beginning as ever with round one. Ian and Mark, take your time.
Court case could be the O.J. Simpson trial comes out on video. Major's there. So who he's having a look? It's on telly. It's on in a bit. There's O.J. with some of his wife. No, it's the watch. I think is giving it away. I reckon it's to do with the 48-hour week.
We would answer the question, but that's it for the week. Sorry.
Oh right.
This is a European Court of Justice directive. Unfortunately, this ruling doesn't apply to things like junior doctors, obviously, because that would be far too sensible.
Or prostitutes, probably.
That's an interesting thought. That's an interesting thought. Anyway, John Major's got very upset about this directive, and he says he's going to fight Europe over this one, just like he fought them over the beef.
Are you aware of some of the past victories that we have actually got?
It's a knockout.
Crecy was one.
Yes.
Agincourt. I think we're going back a bit.
And did you manage to see what how the sun's slant on the whole thing was?
Lovely Janine has 48 big ones.
It was the consequence of the legislation has been slightly misrepresented, as certain groups are exempt, such as security guards, caretakers, hospital staff, journalists, gas, water and electricity workers, dustmen, postal workers, tourist officers and agricultural labourers. So basically it just affects that bloke who runs the kebab shop on the Mile End Road. Paul and Francis, this week's instalment.
David Willits. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's Norman Lamont's former lodger, isn't it? Sir Geoffrey Johnson Smith. Willits, when he was a whip, wrote a memo to some other whips saying he'd had a chat with Geoffrey Johnson Smith, who chaired the Members' Interests Committee and was looking into the Neil Hamilton affair, and this memo said, well, he wants our advice on how we can contain all this. And Johnson Smith now says, no, I never asked for his advice. And Willits said, no, he never wanted my advice. I used the word in the biblical sense. I didn't mean he asked for my advice. I just meant he was in want of advice. But I wasn't going to give him any. And poor Mrs. Willits, every night, he says, I want you, darling, so much. And she said, in the biblical sense again.
I like the fact that no one's investigating the man who gave the bribes. I mean, Fayed is getting off scot-free.
Yes, and the Master of the Rolls says he can't see why he shouldn't be a British citizen, because he's never had a parking ticket in 30 years of living here. Blame the fact he's been denounced as a congenital liar by the Department of Trade and Industry, but he's never had a parking ticket. Well, it's said that his meeting with Geoffrey Johnson Smith took place somewhere in the bowels of the House of Commons.
Which, given what was produced, is fairly appropriate.
Curiously enough, David Willits is nicknamed Two Brains. Presumably that's one for each face. Ian and Mark.
Ooh. It's a giant potato. This is terrible. Is it Blake 7 or something? Oh, it's Doctor Who. Look at it. That's nice.
Like Top of the Pops, that bit, isn't it?
Inside of Liam Gallagher's brain.
Asteroids, isn't it? That's what happens when your Willits clear up, you get asteroids.
Yeah.
That's what There's loads of asteroids apparently coming towards Earth. And
Is that right?
They said they actually said there's one that is 100,000 years away, and after 100,000 years, it's going to hit Earth. So it'll coincide with the launch of Channel 5, I reckon.
I wondered if you know what the asteroid that was hurtling towards Earth was called.
Mr. Blobby.
Simon.
No, it has more to do with Piccadilly Circus, really.
Eros.
Eros, yes, well done.
Lost
No.
Scandinavian tourist.
Eating steady! So I used to stand outside Morden Tube Station when I was growing up. Why, if you say Evening Standard long enough, it becomes... I don't know.
And what's the difference between an asteroid and a meteorite?
Only one of them rides a bike. Well, a meteorite is smaller.
And comes in showers.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. One astronomer has warned that an asteroid the size of Belgium could come crashing down at any time, although unfortunately there's no way of guaranteeing that it will actually hit Belgium. Experts are suggesting that we could divert the course of any approaching asteroid by firing nuclear weapons at it. Opinion is divided on how best to explode a large number of nuclear bombs on an asteroid, although the quickest way would probably be to tell the French that it's a nuclear-free zone. And finally, Paul and Francis.
Oh, a very bizarre black and white film.
I know it.
Did you know him? Yes. Ta-da! This is the man in Russia, isn't it? I think it was Russia. The man who faked his own death, sort of bought a coffin, climbed into it. You know, somebody said he's dead. He went into the church. He wanted to hear what people said about him when they thought he was dead. Unfortunately, he was cremated.
Almost right,
Except
yes.
he wasn't cremated.
Except he wasn't cremated.
And it wasn't Russia.
Africa.
It was in China.
It was Africa, yes.
It was Africa.
Yes, as you thought.
What
Yes, it
did
is.
they say about him, his friends?
It doesn't smell much for somebody who's been dead for 3 days.
And did you pick up any of the amusing headlines that this story threw up?
No, I didn't. What were they?
Curiosity killed the eavesdropper. Whereas The Guardian, particularly clever play on the word cat, I thought. And who helped him?
Lionel Blair and Anwar Sadat.
Well, I've got his wife and 6 kids, but...
Well, Lionel doesn't like the publicity.
Talay George Sockway was pleased that the stunt went well, although he now faces a tough battle to get his lungs and kidneys back from the local medical school. Which final respects mark the demise of this past round, and the grim news is that both teams are dead level on 4. So, local news now. That's if you happen to live abroad. 2 stories of alarming international insignificance. Ian and Mark. No prizes for guessing where.
I would suspect that the identification has changed and they're sold probably in small numbers to small retailers. I've located that one in Bernard Street.
They're looking for something. Is
Foxes.
it kangaroo
Could be-
meat?
Not foxes. They might be fox hunting.
I think they're selling kangaroos in Australia on the black market, and then the kangaroos escape. The police have to round them up in helicopters.
Well, you got half of the question right, but it was something else that you saw in that bit of film that they're rounding up, not kangaroos.
Shopping trolleys.
It is an absurd suggestion, but absolutely right. Yes, it is the Melbourne supermarket that has lost so many trolleys that it's resorted to using a helicopter to round them up. Yes.
What do they do? Shine a light at them and say, "This is the police."
They've made kangaroos use a trolley because before they just were like putting stuff in the little... Let's see what they like.
Fridge freezers, electric kettles, all that sort of stuff. What was that story years ago? There was, I think they were Italian tourists driving through Australia, and they, driving through the outback, and they hit this kangaroo, and it was, killed it, and it was there, and they thought it'd be funny to sort of prop this kangaroo up against the Range Rover, and they put sort of like Armani jackets on it and jewellery and all this kind of stuff, and credit cards sticking out the pocket. And they went to take a picture, and the kangaroo suddenly went like that and went off into the bush. And they never caught up with it. So even now there's a kangaroo going around saying, well, of course, this is what I'll be wearing for this autumn.
Police believe the trolleys are often stolen by organised gangs who know how to strip the trolleys down, remove key parts and dismantle the metal frame, although even they can't get the coin back out of the lock. Paul and Francis, one for the road.
That's Russell Grant, isn't it? Yes, I know what this is. This is... oh, hello. This is how you train people to use harpoons on whaling vessels. But obviously it's too messy to actually do it at sea, first of all, so you train them, because basically, there isn't that much difference between a Volkswagen and a sperm whale. One's slightly easier to get into a car wash. A sperm whale, you coax it in with peanuts. Come on.
Yes, this answer is accurate as far as this is.
Yeah. Was it Norway?
It was not Norway.
Well, it's a bit out of date now. It's basically to stop sort of stolen cars.
It is, sadly, unfortunately, I have to tell you, true. Although
irritating.
It's not, in fact, in Norway. Any idea?
Finland.
Is the right answer, yes.
It looks like a sort of Jeremy Clarkson mobile. The one with a big thing up front. Sort of thing you can take out on a test drive. A lot of grunt up top.
Lot of grunt on top.
It's what people say about cars.
Sounds like he's shagging pigs.
Yes, in the local news programme in Finland, which is called... Any idea?
Hello.
It's called...
Or is it hello or Joe?
Hello, Helsinki. Most of their
is,
news and
yes,
weather
but-
broadcasts are in Latin in Finland, aren't they? They have Latin professors reading the weather in Latin.
Have you gone mad?
I talk about getting sperm whales into car washes. You say they read out things in Latin, and Angus says, "Are you mad?"
The principle of the crime-stopping device is that after catching up with the car, the harpoon pierces the bodywork and releases tear gas, causing the driver's eyes to water and making it impossible for him to breathe or see out. So, a major contribution to road safety.
If he was sitting on the back seat, he wouldn't need the gas to make his eyes water.
The idea of the harpoon is to halt the car before it reaches a crowded area, like Holland. Which undue care and attention brings us skidding to the end of this cul-de-sac, and the situation is that Ian and Mark are trailing with 4, whilst Paul and Francis are blazing ahead with 8. And so to the familiar trough that is our odd one out round. Paul, your legendary figures are Tom Cruise, Medusa, the artist formerly known as Prince, and a waiter.
Well, let me see. Tom Cruise is, well, most people know he's very small, but he's actually only 5 inches high. You can put him in there. I met him, I did the Desert Connor show with him, and you can put him in your top pocket like that. Prince is even smaller. He's, in fact, an amoeba. Really ambitious amoeba with a good ear for a tune. Medusa's having a bad hair day, by the look of it. And the waiter is the odd one out because Tom Cruise, if you work with him on a film, you're not allowed to look him in the eye. If you look at Medusa in the eye, you turn to stone. It's the same with Prince, you can't look him in the eye. The waiter, to get the waiter to come over, you have to catch his eye.
It is to do with a
Did he get the right one?
phobia that is a paranoid fear.
And you wonder why I lose
Paranoid
every week.
fear of somebody looking you in the eye.
Yes, it is. Do you know what it's called?
In my day, it used to be called, "Who are you screwing?" You looking at my bird? No. Why not? She's gorgeous. No, I mean. You all right for petrol? You all right? Used to get a lot around my way, that.
Yeah.
Stockings, chocolate, anything you like. Diesel. You have a diesel, girl?
Why were they calling you girl?
That's me talking to them.
In theory, Paul didn't actually get the right odd one out, although...
Because
I did ask that about an hour ago.
Medusa is
why?
probably the odd one out.
Why?
Well, because
She
the,
quite liked you
the
to
other
look
ones
at her.
have a terror of looking at you or being looked at.
Yeah, so she would, yeah.
Whereas Medusa, people have a terror of looking at her, but she was quite keen on looking at people.
It's true. They're all scopophobic, in other words, have a paranoid fear of eye contact, except Medusa. Recently, when the artist formerly known as Prince walked through a Brisbane nightclub, other customers were ordered to avoid eye-to-eye contact with him, which most of them managed to do by standing up. Francis, your yesterday's men are George Washington, George III, Prince Charles, and Michael Heseltine.
Well, Heseltine has got a massive arboretum. I think.
Has he really?
He's warming his hands on it there, look.
No, he has. He's and he's planted a lot of trees as well in his garden in Northamptonshire. And Prince Charles is another tree fancier. He plants them. He talks to them. I think it's probably why he married Princess Di, actually, because she said she was as thick as two short planks. And I suppose George III probably... Did he plant some royal parks? Richmond Park or somewhere like that, or... Clissold Park, perhaps. Sorry, I just had to say that.
How is it pronounced again?
Clissold Park.
Clissold
In North
Park,
London.
right.
Well, George Washington chopped down a cherry tree and then amazingly owned up to it. First and last American president ever to own up to anything. So I would think the odd one out is George Washington is the right answer.
Irritatingly is the right answer. Yes, very good. What's, for an extra point, what's George Washington's other connection with trees, or wood?
He's sitting on a chair.
He actually had wooden teeth.
Oh, that's right, yes, he did.
Of course.
Wooden teeth.
Who'd have thought?
He used to clean his teeth with Pledge.
You know, the original false teeth were made from hippo's teeth.
Who'd have thought?
Didn't fit awfully well, presumably.
And then when he had a terrible accident a few years later when his mouth burnt down to the ground.
I don't know where you're asking me.
Woodpeckers used to treat his gob as a buffet bar.
George III once talked to a tree in Windsor Great Park, that's near Clissold Park, having confused it with the King of Prussia. Even more embarrassing, he then went up to the real King of Prussia and urinated against him. Mark, your famous faces are Liam Gallagher, Paula Yates, Dr. Clive Froggatt, and Master X.
Is it to do with drugs?
I think it must
In what
be.
way?
You know, if you take loads of cocaine, the membrane in your nose gets worn away, and if you look at Liam there, his whole face is gone.
I mean, he was busted for cocaine last week after the Q Music Awards.
Yes, which you were at, I noticed.
I was, actually, yeah. I don't see why that's funny. As one of the most hip rock journalists around.
It is drug-related, yes.
I mean, Dr. Froggatt was busted for supplying heroin.
At
He
very
was
least.
writing out prescriptions for himself, basically.
Yeah.
It hinges around who Master X is, really.
Ah, yes, Master X. He's the kid who was walking around the school playground and they said he's hanging out coke. And the police came, dangerous substances, take it away, analyse it. It's sherbet. And he was allowed back into the school.
Yes, it is. I'll have to give you 1 point each then in that case. The 11-year-old boy was handing sherbet round in his playground and pretending it was speed. Fortunately, his schoolmates were too pissed on hooch to notice the difference. According to the News of the World, Liam Gallagher was arrested for suspected cocaine possession last Friday night, just hours after beating up a News of the World reporter. So not a totally wasted evening then. And finally in this round, Ian, your obvious bed partners are Adolf Hitler, Mark Thatcher, President Mobutu of Zaire, and Colin Tampon.
Colin Tampon. Is he a Swiss national hero?
To a degree.
Well, Mobutu is reacting to the crisis in his own country, in Zaire, by swanning about in a French clinic, having his prostate done. Adolf Hitler, not well. I think I'm slightly losing the thread here. Can I appeal to Francis, because he was at school with Mark Thatcher?
I was at school with him, yeah. Yeah, well, quite a bit, yeah.
Right.
So I was at school with Mark Thatcher, yeah.
They're all old
They've all
Harrovians.
taken refuge in Switzerland, I should think, except for Hitler, who put all his gold there instead. Something like that. Because Mobutu, before he was in France, was in Zurich in some luxury hotel there, took over about 5 floors of it.
Yes.
And Mark Thatcher claimed Swiss residency for tax purposes until the Swiss slung him out because he never visited or didn't come often enough. And Colin Tampon lived in Switzerland, I think, between 1813 and 1843 until he was in exile from Tamponia.
Who is Colin Tampon?
He's sitting on top of a mountain, isn't he?
Colin Tampon is, in fact, the old English name for a Swiss person.
My sister lived in Switzerland, and you got... If you flushed your loo late at night in a block, the police would come round for disturbance.
There might be more of a disturbance if you didn't flush the loo.
You're not allowed to do much in Switzerland.
Death penalty.
You're not allowed to wear a hat and eat chocolate at the same time. And you're not allowed to teach a penguin how to tap dance. And you're not allowed to eat a trombone.
Well, Colin Tampon is.
Oh, yeah. So which is the odd one out, then? Is it Colin Tampon, as we said earlier?
It is, yes. The answer is they've all got Swiss bank accounts, apart from Colin Tampon, the old English name for a Swiss man. President Mobutu's full name is Mobutu Sese Seko Kuku Mbendu Wazabanga of Zaire, which, according to this week's Guardian, translates as the all-powerful warrior who, because of his endurance and inflexible will to win, sweeps from conquest to conquest, leaving fire in his wake. Although, according to this week's Daily Telegraph, this translates freely as the cock that leaves no hens alone.
Anyone who wanted to read that joke early in the week could have seen it in the current issue of Private Eye.
Yes.
From where it came.
Yeah, but we just thought we'd open it out to a slightly larger audience. The government in Bern has denied that they were aware of Hitler's bank accounts. Apparently they thought that Swiss Nazi Gold was a right-wing radio station. All of which neutral tones call this odd round to account, and on current evidence, Ian and Mark are in the red with 5, whilst Paul and Francis are in the pink with 13. And now the end is near, to quote Frank Sinatra, all too recently. And so we face the final prospect of our missing words round. This week's guest publication, from which several or no headlines may be gleaned, is none other than the unputdownable Donut Directory. A guide to donuts and those who make them. So, pill cleared of causing what?
Unwanted pregnancies. Sex change in fish.
Is remarkably the right answer.
Yeah, you got salmon swimming around with puffball skirts. Do you remember those puffball skirts? In an unfortunate fashion, always made it look like you'd crapped yourself.
First people are calling you girl, and then you're telling us you used to wear puffball skirts.
There's a thread running all through it.
It's an odd youth you had.
Kiss a kiss.
One of the worst offers I've had ever.
It's a hideous image. Let's move on. Next, quantum leap in what?
Donut making.
Donut technology.
The right answer, I don't believe it.
That will look terribly like a fix now.
Yes. Next, what suffers unexpected reversal?
Car that won't go backwards. Donut manufacturing in Peterborough. And if that's right, I'll buy everybody a drink.
Fortunately for your sake, it is in fact infamous pugilist. And it is the way in which the Independent chose to describe the Tyson defeat.
One of those posh papers.
Boxing is a bit stupid because apparently all you get if you win is a huge purse. That's stupid, that isn't it?
Next, getting the best from your what?
Donut.
Jam.
You're guessing now.
Infamous pugilist.
You were closest with donut. What it is
Jam.
before it's a donut.
Dough.
Flour.
Flour, water,
Obviously,
and old bits of
yeast.
cardboard.
Yeast. Yeast is the right answer, yes.
well done.
That's NG and SF yeast if you want your donuts to have the desired final volume.
Is that for the ones with holes in, or for the jam ones, or both?
Both? Yes,
Yeah.
both. And finally, sex clamp hits what?
Prostitutes. They stand on a street corner, they get clamped, and eventually they can't move. They're starved. They starve to death. And the bloke comes along every 3 days and puts them in the back of a lorry. Tarts.
It's not actually that story.
No. Is it BBC or something like that?
Francis just said it, isn't it? BBC.
Yes, he did. So once
give
again,
him a point.
Yeah, Ian loses out yet again.
No, give him a point.
No, we'll have them, because it's one of the biggest scores we've ever had of that little shit over there. Sometimes when you talk quickly, you don't know what the end of the sentence is going to be. I do.
It's difficult.
No,
withdraw that immediately.
Britain's wittiest man. That little
I'm
shit.
sorry.
Yes. It is,
Roll over Oscar Wilde.
I apologise.
in town.
I apologise
It is,
immediately. I'm sorry.
It is particularly ironic as that headline does refer to BBC chairman who has ordered a crackdown on sex and bad language in programmes.
But only before 9 o'clock.
Oh, thank for that. Which, frantic thrashing about, brings proceedings to a fulfilling anticlimax, and the situation is that this week's black holes are Ian and Mark with 6, whilst this week's supernovas are Paul and Francis with 19.
19.
So to our winners, a book signed by the Duchess of York. To our losers, a cheque signed by the Duchess of York. And I leave you with news that on his first full day back at work, Boris Yeltsin's political opponents lay on a special good luck breakfast. Students at the Roger Moore School of Acting learn how to do sad. And in Kensington, Princess Diana returns home after a particularly heavy course of colonic irrigation. Good night.
Dream dates, comedy, drama and music. Over 2 hours of it with the A-Force, BBC Two from 11:15.